The ballroom at the Fairmont Grand Hotel was nothing short of breathtaking. Crystal chandeliers shimmered above rows of elegantly dressed attendees, their quiet hum of conversation adding to the grandeur of the annual charity gala. Among the crowd were some of the nation's most influential figures, business moguls, actors, and journalists, all gathered to support a foundation dedicated to helping underprivileged youth. The air was alive with energy, yet an undercurrent of anticipation buzzed as the evening's keynote speaker prepared to take the stage. Seated toward the back in a less conspicuous corner was Barron Trump. Just 18 years old, his tall frame and stoic demeanor made him stand out, though not intentionally. He had been invited by a family friend, a quiet gesture meant to introduce him to a different circle. Unlike many attendees who thrived in the spotlight, Barron seemed content to observe, his piercing blue eyes scanning the room with a calmness that belied his age. The gala had been moving along smoothly. A string quartet played softly in the background as waitstaff glided through the room, serving delicate hors d'oeuvres and champagne. Conversations were warm, and laughter rippled through the crowd. Yet, as the night progressed, it became clear that the highlight everyone was waiting for was the speech. The journalist, a celebrated figure in liberal media circles, had been announced weeks earlier as the evening's keynote speaker. Known for their sharp wit and unapologetic opinions, they were revered by some and criticized by others for their fiery rhetoric. Tonight, they promised to deliver an address that would challenge perspectives and ignite thought. But as the MC introduced the journalist, a noticeable shift in the atmosphere occurred. Conversations quieted, glasses were set down, and all eyes turned to the stage. Barron, too, leaned back slightly in his chair, his expression unreadable. The journalist stepped up to the podium, a confident smile spreading across their face. Dressed impeccably in a sleek black suit, they exuded charisma. The audience responded with polite applause, but there was an edge of expectation. Would they push boundaries tonight as they so often did? What no one anticipated was just how much. The journalist began with ease, their tone conversational and laced with charm. They joked about the city's infamous traffic and shared a light-hearted anecdote about a past gala mishap involving a toppled champagne tower. Laughter rippled through the audience, breaking some of the initial tension. For a moment, it felt like any other high-profile event, polished, predictable, and harmless, but soon their tone shifted. What started as general commentary on politics and culture veered toward a more pointed critique. They referenced well-known political figures, poking fun at their quirks and missteps. Each jab drew chuckles and nods from parts of the crowd, but others exchanged glances, their smiles tightening. Then, the focus landed squarely on Donald Trump. Well, we can't talk about the state of the world without mentioning the man who made orange the new black, the journalist quipped, drawing scattered laughter. Love him or hate him, you have to admit he's the gift that keeps on giving for people like me. The crowd's response was mixed. Some laughed openly, while others shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Barron, sitting quietly at his table, remained still, his expression unreadable. If the journalist noticed his presence, they didn't let on, at least not yet. The jokes kept coming, each one sharper than the last. The journalist moved on to Trump's policies, his tweets, even his public appearances. The laughter began to thin out, replaced by a growing sense of unease among the attendees. But the journalist wasn't finished. And of course, they said, in pausing for effect, we can't forget his most overlooked legacy, the next generation. I mean, let's talk about Barron. A collective gasp rippled through the room. Heads turned toward Barron, who sat motionless, his face now the center of attention. The journalist's tone remained playful, but the words carried a sting. Imagine growing up in a golden tower, surrounded by marble everything, and your dad tweeting about coffee while the rest of us are just trying to survive Monday mornings. That must have been character building. The attempt at humor fell flat. Some in the crowd chuckled nervously, but most sat in stunned silence. The spotlight of the moment, unasked for and unwelcome, had landed squarely on Barron. But instead of crumbling under the weight of the moment, Barron remained calm, his composure unshaken. What he would do next, however, would leave the entire room reeling. The room seemed to hold its breath. All eyes were on Barron Trump, a young man thrust into the spotlight without warning. The journalist's words lingered in the air, heavy and cutting, as the crowd waited for his reaction. But Barron didn't flinch. He didn't shift in his chair or glance around nervously. Instead, he sat perfectly still, his expression calm but unreadable, his hands resting lightly on the edge of the table. The silence grew louder with each passing second. Even the journalists seemed to notice the tension, their confident smirk faltering ever so slightly as they glanced toward Barron's table. Then, slowly and deliberately, Barron pushed back his chair and stood. The soft scrape of the chair legs against the floor was the only sound in the room. At just over 6 feet tall, He was an imposing figure, his height matched by an aura of unexpected maturity. He looked out at the crowd, his gaze sweeping the room before settling on the journalist. Barron didn't need to speak, yet his presence alone commanded attention, silencing even the faint whispers at the back of the room. He stepped forward, each step measured, his posture straight and unwavering. The journalist froze, there earlier, confidence evaporating as Barron approached. Stopping just a few feet from the podium, Barron spoke. "Thank you for your insight," he began, his tone calm but firm. The audience was stunned. There was no anger in his voice, no trace of indignation, only an eerie sense of control far beyond his years. "I've grown up watching people make assumptions about me, my family, and my life," he continued, his eyes locked onto the journalist. "It's almost become a game to some, a way to fill in the gaps when they don't know the full story, and I get it. We're public figures. It comes with the territory." A hush fell over the room as Barron's words hung in the air, each syllable deliberate, each pause calculated. The journalist, gripping the podium, now seemed visibly uncomfortable. "But there's something important that often gets overlooked," Barron said, his voice carrying a quiet intensity. "Behind every headline, behind every punchline, there's a human being, someone with their own struggles, their own dreams, and their own story." His gaze swept over the audience. "Words have power. They can hurt, or they can heal. They can divide, or they can unite, and I think we could all use a little more of the latter." The room was spellbound. As Barron returned to his seat, the applause began. Soft at first, then swelling into a thunderous standing ovation. The journalists stood frozen, their earlier bravado completely dissolved. Within hours, the moment went viral, sparking conversations far beyond that ballroom. But for Barron, the frenzy didn't matter. He had said what needed to be said, and he had done it with dignity.